There are moments in life, quiet, ordinary, almost unnoticeable, when a single thought arises and, without warning, takes root in the mind. Not because it is true, but because it is repeated. I'm not enough. I'm behind. Something's wrong with me. And over time, these thoughts, whispered in silence, grow into convictions. They become the lens through which you see the world, the script by which you live, and the prison you never chose, but accepted. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But what if those colors were never yours to begin with? What if today, yes today, you could strip away the false shades and begin again, not by changing the world, but by changing how you see it? This is not about shallow motivation. This is about reclaiming the single power that cannot be taken from you, your ability to govern your own mind. And no, this doesn't take a lifetime. It doesn't take a year. It begins in one decision, on one day. And that day is now. 1. The perception. Switch. You don't see the world. You see your mind. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgment about them. Epictetus. You've lived it 100 times before. Something goes wrong, and before the event even ends, your mind is already crafting a story. A missed call means rejection. A delayed reply means you're being ignored. A job interview that doesn't lead to an offer means you're not good enough. But none of those things are facts. They are interpretations. And those interpretations, left unchecked, can become your entire reality. Epictetus wasn't just speaking in metaphors when he said that we suffer not from what happens, but from our judgment of what happens. He was describing a fundamental flaw in human thinking, the illusion that our first thought is the truth. Your brain is not a passive recorder of facts. It is a storyteller, and the stories it tells are rarely neutral. They are tinted with fear, insecurity, ego, past wounds, and false assumptions. When something unpleasant happens, your mind doesn't ask what it is. It asks what it means about you. That's why two people can experience the same event and walk away with completely different worlds. One person doesn't get the job and thinks, "I failed. I'm unworthy." Another misses the same opportunity and says, "Good. The universe just redirected me. It's time to grow." Same event, different reality, different outcome. That's the power of perception. Let's not speak in theory. Let's go straight to the heart of it. Steve Jobs was once fired from the company he co-founded. It was a public humiliation, a personal betrayal, and a crushing blow to his identity. But years later, in his famous Stanford commencement speech, he said, "It turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me." Why? Because he reframed the experience. He refused to be defined by the event. Instead, he used it. He pivoted. He created. He returned stronger, more visionary, and more grounded. Apple didn't make him. His mindset did. This isn't just a nice idea. It's a weapon. If you don't take control of how you interpret your world, the world will interpret you, and it will rarely be kind. You may not be able to control what happens today. The message you're waiting for may never come. The person you love may leave. The work you did may go unrecognized. But what you do control, what the Stoics say is always within your grasp, is how you see those events, how you speak to yourself about them, how you assign meaning. That's where the switch begins. And here's the truth that will change everything. You do not have to believe every thought you think. Let that sink in. Most people move through life reacting as if their thoughts are facts. But thoughts are hypotheses, they're guesses. Many of them are echoes of past pain, not present truth. And the difference between a reactive, anxious life and a grounded, powerful one comes down to this: can you catch that thought before it becomes your identity? Here's the challenge. For one day, just one, observe your interpretations like a scientist, not a victim. When something disrupts your peace, don't immediately accept the emotional label your brain throws on it. Pause, breathe, ask, is this actually true, or is it just one possible version of the story? That space between event and judgment is where freedom lives. This is not about denial. Stoicism does not tell you to suppress emotion or pretend life is always pleasant. It tells you to master the art of framing. Because how you frame something determines how you feel about it. And how you feel determines what you do next. Your thoughts become your compass. They can either lead you in circles of self-doubt or move you forward with clarity and calm. So let's practice. Right now, write down 3 negative thoughts you've repeated to yourself this week. Be honest. Maybe it's, I'm too behind in life, or I always mess things up, or people don't really like me. Now, take each of those thoughts and rewrite them in Stoic terms, without drama, without judgment, and with a focus on what's in your control. For example, I'm too behind in life becomes, I am exactly where I am. I control my effort, not the timeline. I always mess things up becomes, I've made mistakes. I can learn from them. I choose progress over perfection. People don't really like me becomes, I can't control others' thoughts. I choose to live with integrity. This is not about affirmations or sugarcoating. It's about recentering yourself in truth. Marcus Aurelius called it returning to reason. He understood that perception is the filter through which every emotion flows. When your perception is distorted, your life feels chaotic. When your perception is disciplined, your world becomes manageable, even in chaos. It's easy to believe that change takes years, that to master your mind is a lifelong pursuit, and in some ways, it is. But the shift itself, it begins in a moment, in a pause, in the decision to stop letting your automatic thoughts run your life. And in that space, small but powerful, you begin to change your mind, literally. So the next time you feel anxiety rising or disappointment flooding in or self-doubt taking hold, remember, this isn't about the situation. It's about how you're choosing to see it. And if you can see it differently, you will live it differently. Your mind is not a mirror, it's a lens. And you, not the world, decide how it's focused. The power of choice. You can't control life, but you can control how you respond. Life will test you over and over again. Sometimes it feels like every step you take forward is met with an obstacle twice as heavy, a rejection, a disappointment, a failed attempt. And each time, we feel the sting of life's unpredictability, its inability to bend to our desires. The world doesn't bend to our will, and yet this is where the power lies, in how we choose to respond. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who ruled a vast empire, facing wars, plagues, and betrayals, wrote with piercing clarity, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." These words are not just philosophical musings. They are a blueprint for peace, for resilience, for freedom. If we stop fighting the uncontrollable, we free ourselves. If we stop trying to control everything around us, we discover that the only thing worth mastering is our own mind. Most of our suffering comes from trying to control things outside of our power. The people we can't change, the results we can't predict, the recognition we can't force. We put our happiness in the hands of the world, and then wonder why we feel so helpless. It's a trap. But once you realize that the one thing no one can take from you is the power to choose how you respond, everything shifts. Let's consider a case study. There's a young woman full of promise who has just been denied a scholarship to the prestigious program she dreamed of. She feels devastated. She feels like a failure. Her world crumbles in that moment, or so it seems. But then she remembers the lessons of the Stoics. Instead of letting the rejection define her, she chooses a different path. She decides to apply to another program, one that seems like a long shot, and it changes her life. Not only does she succeed, but she discovers new opportunities she never would have considered otherwise. The rejection? It became the best thing that ever happened to her. Now, let's contrast this with another story, a modern one many of us can relate to. A man works tirelessly in his job, putting in late hours, going the extra mile to impress his superiors. He believes his hard work will lead to a promotion. But when the day comes, his boss hands the promotion to someone else. It's crushing. He feels overlooked, undervalued, and worst of all, powerless. Yet while he can't change the decision, he can control how he reacts. He can let this setback fuel resentment, or he can choose to see it as an opportunity to learn, grow, and pursue new goals. The difference in these two stories is not the events themselves. The scholarship rejection, the job promotion denial, they're both external events. What differentiates them is how the individuals choose to respond. One chose defeat, the other chose growth. One surrendered her power to outside events, the other claimed her power through her mindset. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy. Control what you can control and leave the rest. The Stoics didn't argue that the world is fair or that everything will go your way. What they taught was that your power lies in how you choose to see the world and how you respond to it. To truly grasp this concept, ask yourself, what in my life am I spending energy trying to control that I have no control over? Is it the opinions of others? The way people see me? The outcomes of things I can't influence? It's time to release those things. Take a moment now and let's do a simple exercise. Draw 2 columns on a piece of paper. On one side, write down the things in your life that you can control. On the other side, write down the things you can't control. Here's a hint. You might not have as many things on the can control side as you think. In fact, most of what causes us anxiety, frustration, and pain belongs on the can't control side. The more energy you spend on the can't side, the more powerless you feel. But here's the key. The more energy you invest in the can control side, the more you empower yourself. Focus on your thoughts, your actions, your discipline, your reactions. These are yours to shape. The opinions of others, not yours to control. The weather, not yours to dictate. The economy, not in your hands. But you can control how you respond to every challenge life throws at you. And that makes all the difference. Think about a time when life didn't go the way you wanted. Maybe it was a job you didn't get, a relationship that ended, a mistake you made. Now ask yourself, how much of your suffering came from the event itself, and how much came from your judgment of the event? The event itself is just a circumstance, but your judgment, the way you choose to frame it, is where your power lies. Did you see the setback as a permanent failure, or as a stepping stone to something greater? The truth is, you can never fully control life's external circumstances, but you can always control your mindset, your perspective, and your response. That's where your power is. And if you decide to start practicing this today, you'll begin to see the world shift in ways you never thought possible. Life will still throw its curveballs. People will disappoint you, but you won't crumble. You'll respond with strength, clarity, and purpose because you've claimed the one thing that no one can ever take from you: your mind. 3. Emotional discipline. Train your response like a muscle. There are moments when the world presses against you, not physically, but emotionally. Someone cuts you off in traffic, a colleague speaks to you with condescension, a family member says something that stings. And in that split second, your body reacts before your mind even has time to interpret. You feel the heat rise in your chest, the tightness in your jaw, the words forming on your tongue like a reflex. This is where most people lose the battle, not because the situation is overwhelming, but because their response is automatic and untrained. Seneca, one of the most eloquent Stoic philosophers, observed this truth with striking clarity. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Emotions themselves are not the problem. They are raw energy, neither good nor bad. The problem arises when we allow that energy to govern our actions without discernment. Anger, fear, envy, frustration, these are not enemies to be destroyed, but forces to be harnessed. The Stoics did not teach us to suppress emotion, but to steer it with reason. Emotional discipline is not emotional suppression, it is emotional leadership. There is a reason we admire the person who remains calm in chaos, not because they feel nothing, but because they have trained themselves to feel without being ruled. Think of the elite athlete who gets heckled by thousands of fans or insulted on social media after a performance. While others might crumble under the weight of public judgment, they stay composed. Why? Because they have learned that reacting emotionally to every provocation is not strength, it's weakness in disguise. Take the case of a professional tennis player, one of the world's top-ranked. During an international tournament, she was booed by a biased crowd every time she served. Commentators ridiculed her posture. The energy in the arena was hostile, aggressive, yet she didn't scream back. She didn't collapse under pressure. She played her game. She kept her rhythm. She smiled. And after winning, she said, "You train your muscles to perform. Why wouldn't you train your mind to remain calm?" That's not a quote from a Stoic book, but it could have been, because she lived it. Emotional strength works the same way as physical strength. You don't build it by reading quotes or watching videos. You build it by repetitions under resistance. Every time you choose not to retaliate, not to lash out, not to fold under pressure, you're lifting emotional weight. And just like in the gym, it doesn't feel good in the moment. It burns. You tremble. You want to drop it. But that discomfort is where strength is forged. So what's the Stoic technique? Pause. Ask. Reframe. When an emotional trigger arises, don't react. Pause. Create space between the stimulus and the response. In that space, ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why? But more importantly, is this worth my peace? That one question alone has saved people from ruining relationships, careers, and moments they could never take back. After asking, reframe. You are not your anger. You are the one observing it. And from that place of observation, you can respond with clarity, not compulsion. Let's try an example. Someone insults you in front of others. Your pride is wounded. The urge to fire back is strong. But what if, instead of reacting, you pause and think, this is their moment of weakness, not mine. If I join them in anger, I've let them win twice, first with their words, then with my reaction. You breathe, you say nothing, or you respond with calm. That is strength. That is power. True emotional discipline is not just about managing outbursts. It's about reconditioning your default wiring. Most people go through life reacting to the world like puppets on emotional strings. A small annoyance pulls one string, an insult pulls another. They are constantly being controlled, not by others, but by themselves, because they never learned how to pause. Let's not overcomplicate it. Here's your challenge for today. Every time you feel an emotional response rising, whether it's irritation, jealousy, frustration, or fear, write it down. Don't judge it. Just write. What emotion am I feeling? What triggered it? How did I choose to respond? At the end of the day, look at the pattern. You'll start to notice that it's not the world causing your stress. It's your unmanaged reactions to the world. Now imagine doing this daily. Imagine turning this into a discipline. Over time, you would stop being a victim of your emotions and start becoming their master. And when real challenges hit, betrayals, losses, chaos, you won't be shaken. You'll be centered. Because you've trained for this. You've done the inner reps. You've built the mental muscle. Marcus Aurelius never promised a life without hardship. He faced war, disease, and death in his own family. But what he wrote in Meditations was not a cry for comfort, it was a manual for composure. He wrote to himself again and again about the power of stillness, of reason, of mastering his inner world. That is the work, that is the path. To live as a Stoic is not to escape emotion, it is to elevate your relationship with it. To look pain in the eye and remain calm, to hear criticism and stay rooted, to be provoked and not be provoked internally. And when you master this, you don't just protect your peace, you project it. Your energy becomes unshakable. People around you feel it. And most importantly, so do you. You don't need to become emotionless. You need to become emotionally mature, emotionally precise, emotionally intentional. The world will not stop throwing storms at you, but you can become the one who stands, still and strong, as they pass. And the more you train, the more unshakable you become. Fourth, the day that changed him, Marcus Aurelius and the loss of Rusticus. There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from the absence of sound, but from the collapse of everything familiar. A silence that visits after the moment you lose someone who once held your mind together. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic emperor, knew that silence intimately. The day he lost Rusticus, his mentor, his compass, the man who first handed him the writings of Epictetus, was the day he had to walk alone for the first time, not as a student, but as a master of his own mind. This wasn't just a personal loss, it was the loss of certainty, of guidance, of the quiet reassurance that someone wiser was there to catch his missteps. And yet, that day did not break Marcus. It made him. Because when life strips away your comforts, your support systems, your imagined sources of strength, what's left is who you truly are. And for Marcus, what remained was philosophy. What remained was discipline. What remained was a mind forged not by comfort, but by adversity. He didn't write elaborate poetry or give grand speeches about grief. He picked up his pen and wrote in his private journal, what we now call Meditations, with an almost surgical calm. He wrote not to impress others, but to remind himself, look within. Within is the fountain of good. That single line reveals everything. When the outside world becomes chaos, the Stoic does not shout at the storm. He turns inward. He rebuilds from the inside out. Grief for Marcus was not something to indulge, nor something to deny. It was a weight to carry with balance, a teacher that arrived without invitation, but stayed long enough to reshape the soul. And in that moment, when he could have chosen despair, he chose practice. He chose reflection. He chose resilience. That is the essence of Stoicism, not avoidance of pain, but cultivation of strength through it. Many people encounter loss and make it a reason to fall apart. They tell themselves, I can't go on, and then fulfill that prophecy. But Marcus didn't say that. He didn't let pain narrate his life. He turned it into practice, into preparation, into progress. The loss of Rusticus became the beginning of something greater, not because Marcus was numb, but because he was trained. Not trained to feel nothing, but to feel deeply, without becoming lost in the feeling. This is where Stoicism transcends theory and becomes muscle memory. When life hits you hardest, what have you been training for? If you've been building emotional discipline, practicing presence, sharpening perception, then loss, heartbreak, and setbacks won't destroy you. They'll reveal you. The storm won't knock you down. It will expose your roots. What makes Marcus's story even more remarkable is that his grief didn't lead to withdrawal. It led to leadership. After Rusticus's death, Marcus didn't retreat into mourning. He led Rome through one of its most turbulent eras: political unrest, disease, war, betrayal. And still, he wrote, not for legacy, but to survive himself. Each entry in Meditations was a way of saying, I will not be ruled by sorrow, I will govern it. His pen became his sword, his silence, his strength. Now pause for a moment. Think about someone you've lost, or something, a dream, a relationship, a version of yourself that slipped away. What did you become in the face of that loss? Did you collapse? Or did you rise, even if quietly, even if slowly? The lesson here is not to harden yourself against pain, but to prepare yourself to meet it with grace, with stability, with clarity. Marcus lost his mentor, but he found the foundation within himself. You can too. Here's the practice. When something breaks your heart, don't rush to fix it. Don't numb it. Don't dramatize it. Sit with it, like Marcus did. Ask yourself, not why did this happen to me, but who am I in response to this? What values still hold? What inner strength can I now access? Then write. Not for social media, not to be understood. Write the truth only you need to read. That's what Marcus did. And in doing so, he turned his loss into literature that would survive empires. The Stoics never promised a painless life. They never claimed that death or grief or betrayal wouldn't hurt. What they taught was this: the person who trains the mind daily will not be destroyed by what destroys others, because they have rehearsed it, prepared for it. Not with fear, but with intention, with inner rehearsal. They've walked through the scenario in their mind. They've seen the worst, not to scare themselves, but to become immune to the shock. When you lose someone or something dear, your first thought might be, I can't bear this. But remember Marcus. Remember what he lost. Remember that pain is part of life, but suffering is how you respond to it. And you can respond with strength, with structure, with silence if needed, but never surrender. So when life rips something from you, pause. Don't fill the silence. Feel it, and then ask, what remains? If you've been walking the Stoic path, the answer will be clear. What remains is you. Not the fragile version of you that relies on external comfort, but the one who has been trained, shaped, and sharpened by challenge. That day Marcus lost Rusticus was the day he stepped into himself. And one day, when something in your world is taken, you'll be asked the same question: will you crumble, or will you rise? Will you mourn as a victim, or reflect as a Stoic? The world may never know your pain, but if you learn from Marcus, you will. And from that knowledge, you will build a mind not untouched by pain, but unmoved by it. 5. Voluntary discomfort. Train now so you don't crumble later. Modern life is padded, software, optimized for comfort, not resilience. We are surrounded by ease, climate control, instant meals, content on demand. Our problems in many ways have become psychological, not physical. And yet, when true difficulty arrives, loss, failure, rejection, illness, we collapse, not because life is too hard, but because we've grown too soft. The Stoics saw this long before the age of convenience, and they had a radical solution: train for hardship before it arrives. Seneca wrote with stunning clarity, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" This wasn't a romantic notion. It was a form of psychological armor, a reminder that hardship is survivable, that luxury is a trap, that strength comes from friction, not ease. The philosophy is simple. If you only know how to thrive in ideal conditions, you will not survive in real ones. The mind must be tested like the body, pushed, strained, made uncomfortable, if it is ever to become strong. Voluntary discomfort is not about masochism. It's about preparation. It's a form of inner insurance, and the cost of not training? Collapse. Picture two people. One spends their days in comfort, avoiding anything difficult. They postpone workouts. They always choose the elevator. They delay decisions. They live inside the bubble of convenience. The other deliberately builds discomfort into their routine. They wake early, train daily, fast occasionally, confront hard conversations. Their life may seem harder, but when crisis strikes, when the world throws a storm, they do not panic. They have rehearsed discomfort. They have befriended it. This is why Stoicism remains so brutally relevant. It is not meant for the classroom. It is meant for crisis, for illness, for disappointment, for death. And if you wait until those moments arrive to build strength, it's already too late. You must train now, when things are calm, so you don't crumble later. Let's make it personal. Arnold Schwarzenegger, before he became a global icon, was a teenager in the Austrian military. He lived in a cold grey barracks, far from luxury, but he had a dream: to become the best bodybuilder in the world. So he trained in secret, using scrap metal for weights. He skipped meals to sculpt his physique. One night he broke military rules and snuck out of the base, just to attend a bodybuilding competition. He won, was punished, and never regretted it. Because that discomfort, it was already part of him. He had trained his mind to see obstacles as invitations. Pain was not an interruption, it was preparation. Arnold's rise was not just genetic, it was philosophical. He learned early that ambition without toughness is a fantasy, that goals without discomfort are empty, and he carried that mindset into everything: acting, business, politics. He didn't succeed because life was easy. He succeeded because he had already decided to make it hard on purpose. That's the difference between most people and the Stoics. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. Stoics seek it strategically, deliberately, because they know the truth. Comfort breeds complacency, and complacency is a silent killer. So how do you start? Simple. Choose one discomfort every day. Just one. It doesn't need to be heroic. Skip sugar in your coffee. Take a cold shower. Walk instead of calling a cab. Wake up 30 minutes earlier. Sit in silence for 10 minutes without distraction. The discomfort doesn't matter. What matters is your relationship with it, your willingness to meet it head-on. And then write. Not about the task, but about the mindset. How did you react? Did you resist it with irritation? Did your mind spiral into complaints? Or did you meet it like a Stoic, with quiet strength, with steady breath, with the phrase, "This is the training"? That journal, those little reflections, will become your record of growth. Day by day, you'll notice the shift. You'll start to realize that discomfort, once your enemy, is becoming your ally. That the voice that once screamed, "I can't," is whispering, "I already did." This is the paradox. When you choose discomfort, you become free. Because the moment you stop needing everything to be easy, you stop fearing what's hard. And the moment you stop fearing what's hard, you become invincible. You no longer beg life to be gentle. You become strong enough to meet it on its own terms. There will be days ahead when your plans fall apart, when people disappoint you, when outcomes turn against you. You can't stop those days from coming, but you can train now for how you will meet them, calm, ready, grounded. Because you've been here before, because you made it hard on purpose when you didn't have to, and that's what gave you power. Voluntary discomfort is not a punishment, it is a practice of freedom. The freedom to walk into the chaos of life with a still mind and a strong spine. The freedom to suffer without becoming a victim. The freedom to say, "I am not afraid of this," because you've already faced worse on your own terms. And if you commit to this, if you do just one thing every day that makes your mind flinch and still choose to do it anyway, you'll build something deeper than confidence. You'll build faith in yourself, a quiet, grounded trust that says, "I don't need life to go my way. I just need to meet it with my full strength." That's the Stoic way. 6. Build the mind that refuses to break, the self-talk ritual. You've come this far, not by accident. Somewhere inside you, a quiet revolution began, a decision to stop reacting and start choosing, to stop collapsing into chaos and start building something unshakable. But here's the truth no one tells you. A new mindset does not arrive like a miracle. It is not downloaded overnight. It is forged day by day, thought by thought, in the quiet moments no one sees. A new thought process is not something you stumble into, it's something you train. And the battlefield is your inner dialogue. Everything you've learned on this journey, perception, choice, emotion, discomfort, it all converges here, the way you speak to yourself when no one else is around, because that voice becomes your reality. And if it remains loud, chaotic, self-loathing, afraid, then no external change will ever be enough. But if that voice becomes calm, focused, grounded, disciplined, then even in the storm, you will not break. This is where the Stoics were masters. They understood the mind is not a wild animal to be feared, but a tool to be trained. Marcus Aurelius didn't write meditations for you. He wrote it for himself, as a form of daily mental hygiene. He woke each day to recenter. He ended each night by reminding himself who he wanted to be. That's not inspiration. That's architecture. You don't have to be a Roman emperor to do the same. You just need a ritual, a daily conversation with your mind, not to control the world, but to govern yourself. Morning, you rise before the noise, before the screens, before the world gets its grip on your attention. Sit in silence, close your eyes, breathe slowly 3 times, and think, what do I control today? The answer is always the same, your thoughts, your choices, your response. Then write one Stoic action you will take, something rooted in principle, not impulse. Maybe it's, I will speak with clarity, not emotion. Or, I will embrace delay without complaint. Or simply, I will respond, not react. Then whisper to yourself, today I train my mind, not to win, but to remain. This one sentence reframes everything. You're not chasing glory. You're not demanding validation. You're not obsessed with outcomes. You are training for resilience, for calm, for integrity. Because that is the real win. And at night, when the world has pulled at your attention in every direction, you return, not to escape, but to review, not to judge, but to understand. You write one line, just one, a self-talk mantra that brings you back to yourself. I am not my thoughts. I am the one observing them. My peace does not depend on outcomes. Today tested me, and I stood. Simple, clear, personal. And over time, these words become more than reflections. They become identity, because repetition creates roots. That's what Viktor Frankl discovered in the darkest place on earth. He was imprisoned in a Nazi concentration camp, stripped of everything, his work, his family, his freedom. And yet, in that horror, he found the one thing they could not take, his choice of thought. His self-talk became a shield. He told himself, they can take my body, but not my response. And from that inner commitment, he survived. He observed suffering without becoming it. He wrote the pages of man's search for meaning in his mind, long before he had pen and paper. Hope was not given. It was chosen. Frankl's story is not a myth. It's a reminder. You may not be in a camp, but you will face days that feel like a prison, of doubt, of loss, of uncertainty. And when those days come, the only thing between you and despair will be that inner voice. So build it now. Speak to yourself with discipline, with clarity, with strength, because when the world falls apart, your mind is the only place you will still live. Your ritual doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, the simpler, the better. Each morning, breathe 3 times and think, what is within my control? Write one stoic action you will take today. Whisper to yourself, today I train my mind, not to win, but to remain. And at night, review your inner world. Write one line of self-talk, not to fix, but to anchor. Sleep, not with anxiety, but with alignment. You may not feel the change immediately, but that's how true strength is built, not in a flash, but in a slow burn. One small act of sovereignty over your mind, repeated daily, becomes an empire of control. And one day, something hard will come, a betrayal, a loss, a rejection. And in that moment you won't panic, you'll pause, you'll breathe, and the voice inside you will say, I've trained for this. That's when you'll know you've become someone new, not someone untouched by life, but someone unshaken by it. The world teaches you to decorate your life. The Stoics teach you to fortify it, to build something stronger than appearances, deeper than mood, more lasting than applause. This is not about being perfect. It's about being prepared. Because the mind is a battlefield. Every thought is a soldier. And every day you train, you become more than a survivor. You become a strategist, a leader, a quiet warrior with a sharp edge and a calm heart. You are not a victim of your mind. You are its commander. And now you have the ritual to prove it. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you is ready. Ready to stop being a prisoner of your thoughts. Ready to choose clarity over chaos. Ready to become the kind of person who doesn't wait for life to change, but becomes the change. This is the power of Stoic philosophy, not theory, not cold wisdom carved in marble, but a fire, quiet, steady, and burning from within. The Stoics didn't teach us how to escape the world. They taught us how to face it. And more than that, how to face ourselves. If today's video sparked something in you, don't let it end here. Leave a comment below and share. What is one toxic thought you're letting go of today? And what new Stoic belief will you replace it with? Your story may be the exact light someone else needs. If this message spoke to you, help it reach someone who needs it. Like this video. Share it with someone stuck in their own mind. Subscribe for more content that sharpens your soul instead of dulling your senses. because we don't grow by accident. We grow by decision. And maybe, just maybe, your next decision will shape your next decade. Thank you for being here, for thinking deeper, for walking this path with us. And remember this, the mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. Plutarch. So I'll leave you with one question. If you could rebuild your mind in just one day, why not today? Take the first step. I'll see you in the next video.